So how has the FOI changed since its foundation in 1976? Has much changed? How does it relate still to the world around us?
I think, as I mentioned at the beginning, it started very much at Huntington, which they've sort of renamed to Clonigall Castle because that was more Celtic. But it started there and was something that local people connected with, and in a sense, it grew more and more in I don't want to use the word patches, but there were sort of areas where it blossomed and it gradually developed, and with it developed some of the daughter societies, the people who particularly wanted to work with the environment, or people who wanted to work with animals and other particular areas. But it still remained very much a fellowship and was based around the manifesto, which is still its core now. And that's something that we ask every member to agree to. That's just the bottom line. And then gradually, as worldwide membership grew and more and more people became interested, and it spread by word of mouth. Also, there were various films made and different interviews, and I remember once travelling on an aeroplane over to Ireland, opened up my in-flight magazine, and there was an article about the Fellowship of Isis and Huntington. So it began to become, in a sense, quite mainstream, and more people joined. Sadly, my uncle Lawrence, we knew him as Uncle Derry, died, and I know Olivia then had, with able support from many long-term members, but she had to juggle sometimes some of the things that happen in any group of people, disagreements and things like that. And it was later on in the fellowship's development that she felt that people might be, in a way, sort of calmed by being a member of a particular order. So she developed these based actually on Masonic lines. So there were 33 members, and there were 3 of these particular organisations. And she found that this helped with the internal dynamics of the different personalities that were in the fellowship. So that's something that has developed more recently, and some people really enjoy perhaps the extra status and the hierarchy that's formed in a way with that. And I can see the need for it at the time, but I myself wondered about the ongoing usefulness of these particular structures, because, to be honest, not everybody knew that they were part of them. Right. And some of the people in them had passed on, or others had no longer any particular connection with the FOI. So they felt to be, when I started, they felt to be rather moribund and not necessarily a useful structure to continue with. So that was something I suggested might be part of a spring clean when I started. I didn't get a lot of response back, so I presume that it wasn't something that was particularly important to people.
So you mentioned some of the subgroups, if you like, within the organisation, within the fellowship, which include daughter organisations that are still very much present. Yeah. But it was really the archpriest unions that you had decided were perhaps had their day, and you decided to dissolve those.
Yes.
I believe there was a bit of reaction against that, perhaps, and to some other changes that you suggested.
Yes. When I as I mentioned before, I did actually sort of do a sort of pilot voice out there just to see if there would be a reaction. There wasn't anything, so I thought, okay, let's go for it. So it was also at that time, and also just before Olivia died, in the final year or two of her life, when certain things were coming to light in some of the festivals and some of the membership in wider areas where there was, you could say, some unethical goings on, and it became very apparent that we needed a strong code of ethics, and this is something that I worked through with Olivia, and we put out various statements at the time about this, and we'd also had occasional times when some members, very few, but it was still a problem, had perhaps issues where it wasn't useful at different festivals if there was problems with the Sex Offenders Act, for example, and having children at festivals would have been a problem, and various members were saying they didn't want to come to festivals because of this. We had to make sure that certain members would not attend. So this sort of thing where the real world meets the Fellowship of Isis and meets any area, any organisation in this sort of world. So some members their membership had to be rescinded because of this. So it was very clear that we had to have a strong code of ethics and a strong grievance and procedure that would allow the management of this in a fair, open and transparent way. So this was something that we started before Olivia died, but we carried on and put out after she died. And various members felt that this was something that wasn't necessary and they were not going to uphold this. And I feel that this is a bottom line, that if we're going to operate in the modern world, we have to actually have a safeguarding procedure, which is still being worked at in its fine detail. We have to have safeguarding, we have to have a code of ethics that means that we are safe and that the public can be safe with us. And this is just really important, and it's what any, in a sense, grown-up organisation has to take on board.
So, having dissolved the Archpriest Union, what do you see as replacing it, if anything?
Well, this is something that has been a point of discussion within the Circle of Brigid, who are a wonderful group of people around the Foundation Centre who have such a clarity and a warmth that I really respect their thoughts. And something we've talked about together is a council of elders. So this is those who have been involved with the Fellowship of Isis or equivalent for many years and who have accrued wisdom. And we can use, and they would contribute their insights and clarity and spiritual depth to invigorate and guide the fellowship into the future. And so this is something that we're working towards. Not quite sure of the precise structure yet, but it's something that we're really quite excited about. So it'd be a little bit like a second chamber in Parliament, where you've got the wisdom of those to call on and guide.
Well, this is really very much about acknowledging the skills and abilities of these very hard-working members.
Absolutely.
From all levels of things. I mean,
yes.
Do you think that's an important thing to be able to recognise that?
Very, very important, and it's a fabulous resource as well that we want to honour and acknowledge and draw on. We're all sadly finite, and we want to be able to enjoy and celebrate those gifts that people have developed over years. Yeah.